Okay, the recording has started. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. If you can, look in the chat there. We have the Nearpod link in there, so you can kind of follow along as we go. Today we're going to go over crime or crime awareness, so you're familiar with that. A couple just things here. Remember, this lesson is recorded for learning purposes, just so you're aware. And then my expectations as we go through the course here today, or this class, is one, make sure you're following along with the Nearpod lesson, or you're answering, if you can't get on the Nearpod, that you can answer things on the chat. Make sure you use the chat tools respectfully and appropriately. And then you're also responding to questions and instructions the first time, so we can kind of get moving along in it. I do have to mention in here a little kind of warning that the topics we talk about in criminal justice may be a little, I wouldn't say controversial, but sensitive topics, okay? So we want to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page. You guys are in high school. Hopefully you guys understand what's appropriate, because some of these things that we deal with in criminal justice are, as I said before, very sensitive and stuff like that. So let's not kind of talk disrespectfully when we talk about some of this stuff. Okay, before I get into it here, the lesson objective, I'm just going to jump to the course so you kind of have this. Remember, I always post the course, the course. I'm having a hard time speaking today. The lesson recording on the announcement page. As you click plan, you're going to see what's going on here. We have live class. That's every Thursday unless I can't make it, and then there'll be a recording sent out. Then the following Wednesday, you'll have time to get that. So what we're teaching here, that will be due on the 7th, and then just so forth. Remember, the end of the block ends the 18th. And so that will be the last day of the block. So you do have about a week and a half to kind of make things up if you need to. Okay. If you go to content, what we're going to be in today is we're going to go over the unit of crime. If this is your first class or you've done that before, make sure you jump back to unit 1. You can catch the Nearpod link, the recording. I'll move that to the top. So you can do the lesson recording, the Nearpod link, and then here's a little bit of information. You have a quiz and a reflection. One thing I wanted to make note on the reflection, it looks like a lot of you guys aren't doing the reflection. That's going to catch up to you on your grade. So all I'm looking for is 100 words. It's like a paragraph, like 4 sentences that you just create in a Word document or a Google Doc. I can even make something for you that I can put in where you can just copy right over and then you put it in there. That's all I'm looking for, is it's what you learned about in that unit. Okay. Yeah, just do it. It won't be too bad, I promise. Okay, let's go to the lesson now. That'd be great. So the lesson objective is, given a quiz in the OLS, students will accurately answer multiple choice questions about crime and awareness with 80% accuracy across one trial. So one thing that we're going to look at today, when we look at crime, we got to think of, how do we know that crime is actually happening? And the only way we know that it's happening is if it's reported. And so there is what's called the UCRS, which is the Uniform Crime Reporting System. And this basically tells us what are the most prevalent, so the crimes that happen the most and where they happen at, what location, what kind of demographics were doing it. Was it a male or female? Was it, a certain race? Was it anything like that? So there's all of those kind of demographics, and they're kind of skewed in certain ways because of just cultural biases and stuff like that. Okay. So that's something that we'll kind of look at the very end here. Okay, but the first thing we're going to talk about, or we're going to watch this little video about what is kind of crime. And so we'll watch this video and then we'll discuss a little bit.
Hi there, this is Margit from criminologyweb.com, and in this video I'll take on the question, what is crime? When talking about crime, many people think about famous cases, like the assault at Rodney King in the US, or the mafia in Italy, or perhaps the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi in India. But crime isn't restricted to the famous cases or even what we think of as serious cases. Crime includes violence, robberies, rape, and drug wars, but also stealing at work, corruption, corporate fraud, and tax violations. But what else is crime and what is it not? These seem like questions with obvious answers, but when you start looking into these questions, it turns out that it's not always so easy to say what is a crime and what is not a crime. What about, for example, when one hears the neighbor screaming or potentially beating his or her family? Or when companies pollute the air with their toxic substances? Of course, there is the law, which determines what is legal and what is illegal. But the thing is that the contents of the law vary depending on time and legal system. So let's look at a couple of examples of how the law varies by time. One example is domestic violence. It used to be tolerated, and in some places it still is, when a man or a woman beats his or her partner and kids. Nowadays, in many countries, that is considered to be problematic, to say the least. As another example, in 1784 in Prussia, which is the forerunner of modern-day Germany, only much larger, there was a law that mothers were not allowed to take their under 2-year-old children into their beds. That idea has changed quite a bit in many places. It also used to be a crime in different parts of the world to work on a Sunday, and maybe it still is in some areas. So these are some examples of how the law varies by time. The law also varies by legal system. An example of this is prostitution. In some countries, prostitution is illegal. In other countries, prostitution is legal. And in still other countries, it is a criminal offense to buy sexual services, meaning to be a client of a prostitute. So what does that say about prostitution? Is it a crime or is it not a crime? Another example is the consumption of cannabis. Also in this area, there are quite different rules and laws. In some countries, the possession of small quantities of cannabis is legal, and in other countries, it's not. But even for a crime like murder, one cannot say that this is always and everywhere regarded to be an offense and treated that way. In some places, you can murder certain people without being punished for it. An example of that is honor killings, which can be committed while the police are looking away in some places. Or war. In war, there are different rules and sometimes things are allowed that are not allowed otherwise. In many cases, when you talk about crime with other people, you can probably get by when you use the current legal definition of crime in the area where you live. But especially when talking about crime across time and place, one should be aware that the definition of crime is a product of society, culture, and of time, and so that it can change. For more fascinating criminology.
All right, so hopefully you got something out of that. It was just kind of interesting that basically the law is subjective of basically where you live. And so this is what I'm going to ask you. A question that I want you guys to put up here on the board. It says crime is subjective, which meaning it's determined on what people think at that time and is based upon where you live. What are some crimes that you may disagree with? Okay, are there any crimes out there right now that you just think are not a big deal? Okay, going to jail for self-defense. Okay. Okay, so somebody put, I think cannabis should be legal. Okay, that's a big one. That's a big debate that's going on, right? Should it be? Should it not be? Right? There's people that would say that marijuana does less harm to you than than cigarettes, right? Or alcohol. So we should make that legal. I don't know. Abortion and cannabis, both of which are pretty legal. Okay. Yeah. And that goes back and forth a little bit on time. We've seen abortion laws change recently, right? And just so you guys know, I'm not here to sway one way or the other on any of your guys' opinions. This is all up to you guys. But this is, something just to think about and talk about. I don't think jaywalking is a major crime. Okay, I agree with you. Probably have all broken the law that way. Okay, going to jail for self-defense, owning fire weapons. Okay, yeah. So certain fire weapons are illegal, and then some are legal. Drugs should be regulated, like alcohol, vapes, and cigarettes. Okay, so you may think other drugs kind of on there, not necessarily just those. Not doing school should be legal. Okay. Yeah. And so we talked a little bit about this last time, that some laws are not followed, right? And some are. So killing somebody that's done something to you. Okay. I could see that. Going to jail for self-defense. Homework shouldn't be mandatory. Okay. I know some schools that don't have it mandatory. We were just thinking the minute, but there is a lot out there, that is of subjective and that you may disagree with, right? As we go back to counting crimes, okay, there are certain crimes that are categorized as basically high. They're the ones we track quite a bit. Let's just say that the FBI goes and tracks these, and those are murder, so criminal homicide, robbery, forcible rape, aggravated assault, burglary, motor vehicle theft, larceny, and then arson. Okay, so all of those would kind of be on there. Yeah, so that would become under murders, Sawyer. That would be part of that. So that'd be counted as one of these 8 specific crimes, major crimes is what they call them. So the first one is you've never heard of larceny, theft. Yep, we're going to go over all these, and you probably want to know them for your quiz, just so you're aware. Okay. All right. So criminal homicide is the willing non-neglect killing of a human being by another. Okay. So, for example, non-neglect. So, neglect is basically, you're driving down the road and you accidentally hit somebody and kill them, right? So, that would not be a good thing. So, this is willfully doing it and not self-defense, that kind of stuff. Okay. So, that would be criminal homicide. The next one is forcible rape. This is the carnal knowledge of a female forcibly and against her will. So I think this can go both ways. Somebody had debate male, female. I think it can go both ways, right? So, but that is one of the ones they do there. Next one, robbery. Robbery is taking or attempting to take anything of value from the care, custody, or control of a person by force or threat of force or violence, and or by putting the person in fear. So what that means, okay, is if you have a weapon, that would be a robbery, right? If you had just a note saying, I have something, you better give me money, that would put fear into somebody. That would be considered a robbery still, okay? That's different than some of the other things we'll talk about in a second. So I want you to distinguish the two. Okay, next one, aggravated assault is an unlawful attack by one person upon another for the purpose of inflicting severe or aggravated bodily injury. Okay, so, sometimes in schools, we don't have it in the virtual school, which is great. That's one reason I like it. But you have kids that fight sometimes, right? Now, if it gets too much, right, and gets to where it's very severe injury-wise, very bad bodily injury, it could be considered aggravated assault, which is there's penalties. These main 8 ones carry severe penalties and usually minimum sentences. So a minimum sentence basically believes that, or says that, it doesn't matter if you feel remorse or they think you were justified in some way, you're going to have a minimum of X amount of years in prison. Okay. I'm not sure what the minimum sentence is for the crime because it's different in each state, Ashton. So we could look it up in Utah and see what it is, but I'm not sure what the minimum sentence is. And it depends on where it's tried too. If it's tried in a federal court, then the minimum's different than if it's tried in a state court, if it's a state thing. So federally would mean it happened maybe on federal property, or it happened across state lines or something like that. So good question, but it's all a lot. There's a lot of stuff to be involved. And I'm not up to date. I'm not a defense attorney or a prosecutor. So, okay, the next one's burglary. This is the unlawful entry of a structure to commit a felony or theft. Okay, so, yep, I like these ones. West Side Cat burglary napped by cops. So it's unlawful entry of a place, and then you committed a felony or some type of theft. Okay, the next one is larceny theft. This is the unlawful taking, carrying, leading, or riding away of property from the possession or constructive possession of another. Okay, so just taking something, you're not being violent about it, right? You're not unlawfully going in a place, but you are taking something of somebody else. Like larceny, you could think of this as possibly stealing, pickpocketing maybe, right? Could be considered that. But also a lot of white collar crimes. So white collar crimes are like transferring money. If somebody hacked your account and stole it, you could be considered larceny. No, squatting would be more of the, well, if you committed a felony in there. So squatting's kind of like on a little bit of a different kind of thing. So if people are not familiar with what squatting means, that means entering somebody's home and taking it. If they took something out of there, right, out of the home, then that's burglary. But if they're just staying there, this wouldn't be larceny or theft, or it wouldn't be burglary. This wouldn't be a major crime, right? It would be more of a other type of dispute there. So, yeah, no problem. I like you guys asking questions. That's great. The other one's motor vehicle theft. Okay, the theft or attempted theft of a motor vehicle. So it's kind of interesting. Not too long ago during the summer, we had my kids. They were sleeping out underneath the trampoline, and we put blankets under there. And then my neighbor, they actually work on cars a lot, and so he actually left the key to the car in his thing, and somebody at night came and stole the car. Like the same day at night, my kids were sleeping out there. So now my wife's freaking out a little bit, but they caught him. But motor vehicle theft, that's one of the things, right? So, okay, another one is arson, okay? And you probably think of, why would somebody want to set fire to something? Usually it's to gain insurance money. So the willful burning or malicious burning or attempted burning with or without intent to defraud of a dwelling, house, public building, motor vehicles, or aircraft, personal property of another. So most of the time arson happens, as I said, for example, like let's say I needed money and things weren't working out, or I was mad at somebody. That's usually when that would happen, arson. Okay, we're going to watch another video. and then we're going to discuss a little bit more.
AI technology help police solve crimes in movies and on TV all the time. But that same technology is being used right here, right now, to catch criminals.
And tonight, police are showing off the tools they used to catch a man accused of attempted murder. News Channel 5's Jason Hackett is live in Riviera Beach with our story. Jason?
Well, Michael and Shannon, Jermaine Nellums was arrested on Wednesday and charged with many crimes. His capture was one part just good old-fashioned police work, but the other part of it is what you see behind me, the present and the future of policing. When it comes to crime, police will always be the first line of defense, but it never hurts to have some backup.
I'm a resource to the officers and to investigation as a whole.
The resources Officer Osel Harrison provides are why Jermaine Nellums is sitting behind bars tonight, facing several serious charges. Riviera Beach police believe Nellums shot a man near Silver Beach Road and Avenue R on December 4th. The path to catching him began here at headquarters in an area dubbed Sky One, starting with the shot spotter system.
It triangulates the audio from the sound of a gunshot.
What you're hearing are the 12 rounds Nellums allegedly fired at his victim that night. The victim was able to give police a description of the vehicle he was in, and that's when the city's real-time surveillance system came into play. It spotted a truck matching the description in the area minutes before the shooting.
We're able to piece together the varying points from entry to exit as far as how the truck traveled throughout our city.
The department's license plate reader system furthered the investigation. The reader was able to scan the plate on the truck Nellums was driving, leading them to the rental company he got it from, leading them to the alleged shooter. It sounds like the future, but for this department, it's the present.
I kind of liken it to when DNA was discovered. You can't get away from it. You cannot get away from our technology.
The department's message to criminals: enter Riviera Beach at your own risk.
We are letting you know we are going to aggressively pursue criminal behavior.
You will be apprehended, and we have the resources that can tie in to make that arrest possible.
Now, Riviera Beach was actually awarded for having one of the most technologically advanced.
Stop it right there. Yeah, as you said, tech is pretty cool. But it's interesting. So, for example, in like the United Kingdom, and I'm not saying I want the United States to be like this whatsoever, but they have the CCD cameras. I think that's what they're called, but they're everywhere. You can't go outside without being caught on camera. And so they can see everything that's going on, and they can pull things back up, and it's being recorded. But besides like technology that was already talked about in the video, what other kind of things that do police use to catch criminals, right, that you've seen? Okay, fingerprints, witnesses, people getting license plates. Okay, yeah, so running license plates, and then people like other people that go and steal people's license plates. I think that's what you mean. Maybe you can clarify that a little bit, if that's not what it means. Criminal making mistakes, leaving proof, right? Evidence. DNA has been really big recently. They're being able to solve all these what called cold cases that they couldn't solve before. That happened, 30 plus years ago. And now they know who did it. And some more people are being tried for it now, which I guess it's finally coming back, right? Which is good. So detectives, just flannel police work, security cameras, body cameras, and witnesses. Yeah, body cameras are pretty interesting because the way we perceive that way things happen isn't always exactly how they happen, right? Our mind gets distorted in certain ways, other things come in. And so maybe what we saw wasn't necessarily exactly what we saw, but when we had body cameras and stuff like that, it's kind of nice. It protects the police officers and stuff like that. Okay. Left materials, lie detectors. They disguise themselves as criminals. So undercover police officer work. Yeah. Friends and suspects, undercover, good interrogation suspects, car cams. And that's becoming bigger. Like Tesla, if you're walking around the car, it'll turn on and record you, right? Chicken wings. I don't know what that means. Okay. case where there was a mosquito in the car and someone stole. Oh, interesting. I haven't heard that before, but yeah, there's a security feature on there, Emma, where if somebody's like by the car and walks around it, it'll actually film them. So they've caught people like damaging their car and stuff like that. It's kind of an interesting feature. Okay. So we talked about data collection. You know, the FBI does those 8 ones that we talked about. They record all of those demographics. There's some other demographics they do as well, but Utah also does that, and it runs through the state agency. The U.S. crime rate is comparison to the total people committed of the population divided by 1,000 people. While in Utah, the comparison's for every 1,000 people, because the United States is a lot bigger. They have to use a bigger number. So when we're looking at percentages, we'll kind of see. So like that's a 1 in 100,000 option is what we're saying, right? So you got a 1 in 100,000 chance of this happening to you. Or, but in Utah, they put it as like a 1 in 1,000 chance, or 2 in 1,000, or whatever the statistic is. Okay. We kind of talked about this before. When somebody gets arrested, I'm just hoping nobody gets arrested on here. They do look at these different demographics. They look at your age, your gender, your race, and then also if you're adult or juvenile. Okay. Here's the clearance rate. Okay. So clearance rate means that they solved to actually did it. Okay. So for example, murder, there's almost a 64% chance if you were to commit a murder that you're going to get caught. Okay. Rape, there's a 40%. Aggravated assault, a 55%. This is actually caught and convicted, right? So that means clearance that way. Robbery, 27%. Burglary is 13%. And then larceny, theft, 20%. Okay. And that's how they do it, is they get that data and they kind of run it, right? The National Incident-Based Reporting System. And so data's continue to be collected in there. And this is kind of how we know what areas are like the safest places to live, where we may not think maybe that they may have some different problem, like maybe a drug problem or that. And so it's nice to be able to have this data, because then we can put in different resources in different areas to kind of help that out. Okay. So this is an interesting question. We have all of these statistics that are coming into play, right? But why are crimes actually not reported? Okay. We know more crimes happen than the data tells us. And probably a lot of the clearance rate is dependent on people not telling them. So fear, yes, very good. People are scared to accuse somebody that some type of retaliation is going to happen, like blackmail, right? People are afraid. Fear, yep. Because maybe the person who it committed also committed a crime. Yep. You don't want to incriminate yourself, right? That's what it's called. Politics, yep, could be. Sometimes, depending on the crime, they don't even realize there was a crime, like pickpocketing, okay? So that might happen. Like I may supposedly lose my wallet, but somebody actually stole it, but I had no idea. I thought I lost it, right? Something like that. They think no one will believe them. That's a good thing. So good thing to talk about. So a lot of victims don't come forward because they don't want to know that something like this happened to them. There's sometimes a lot of shaming that goes on as a victim. And so it's very troublesome for people to be able to come out, right, and talk about that. Some people don't trust the police. Very good. Yep. But the first lesson I kind of talked a little bit about too was What is your relation? How have you had any interaction with the police ever? Right? And was it positive or negative? So a lot of it was negative. And so if you have a negative experience with the police, why would you go to the police if you have an issue? Right? Okay. Could be someone you know. That's right. Relatives. You don't want to get them in trouble, right? Depends on the crime. For example, rape victim can be humiliated, traumatized, yep, and not want to talk about it. Definitely agree 100% there. That's what happens a lot, unfortunately, with that, and it doesn't get reported. But they have to go through that. The victim does, you know. Fear is huge, a huge thing, I think. Okay, fear. They may think you had something to do with it. Yep, you might be worried about that. They could get in trouble too. Yep, you don't want to incriminate yourself. Very good thinking, guys. Oh, somebody put one other thing. I'll jump back here just real quick because you put it. Why not? They might think that it's their fault, so they don't want to talk about it. Yeah, as I said, there's a lot of shame and stuff like that that comes from there. Here are some things that they said: fear of retaliation, feeling police inability to solve a crime. Crime may involve relatives, neighbors, or close friends, and you just don't want to get them in trouble, right? So crime goes up and down in different places, and it just depends, okay? Change in reporting procedures can change why crime goes up and down. Population growth, so it may go up because the population's growing. The urbanization process, so more people are moving into an area which was once rural or suburban area, and there's just a lot more interaction. There's more crime that happens. Changes in law, so really it depends on what the police decide to enforce too, right? Political consideration of police administration, changes in public opinion, if something's good or not. Like, you know, marijuana, I think eventually it'll probably be legal countrywide, right? That's just kind of how the trend's going right now. I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing, just kind of my observation there. Okay, we're gonna skip a little bit of these because we already talked about that. Okay, so knowing what you do, we have laws that we would like to create sometimes, and laws that we don't wish we could eliminate. So I just want you to put in the next discussion real quick. A law, it can just be one. I put two on here, but if you could create a law, we can just do one law. Shouldn't have two. One law that you would like to create that you think would be a good idea. And some people might not put anything because they think there's too many laws, maybe. Homework is not handed out. Okay. Things that affect you, right? Relevancy. Instant death when somebody rips. Okay. Shouldn't be allowed to wash hands without rolling up your sleeves. All right. Rape case should be investigated before murder. Okay. Getting back my land. Murder someone, you get killed. Okay. So you think an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So some people are talking about more of the punishment kind of thing, right? We will be talking about punishment in one of our classes, and we more talk about the law and how that works. People who are hurting animals go to prison. Okay. I wouldn't make school mandatory depending on what kind of person has going on. Okay. Texting and driving should be much more severe. Okay. Gun restrictions. Legalize some things. Okay. Heavier punishment for trafficking. If you're weird, go to prison. I don't think that. I think everybody's weird and it's very subjective. I wouldn't want that to be on there. Okay. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Yep. Like getting told it's just anxiety when you go to the hospital. Okay. Road rage, punishment's more severe. Pineapple on peach, that should be a crime. Okay, making immigrants easier access, freedom for women to get abortion legalized. It doesn't stop it, okay? Making it riskier. Okay. Really good thoughts here. Okay, if you could make, I think this one is if you could eliminate any laws. We'll just do a couple real quick because I know we're winding down on time here and I still got quite a bit to go through. As you're doing that, I'm just going to look here. Okay, so eliminating laws, relate drugs, don't legalize them. Okay, regulate drugs. Causes more problems. Okay, California laws for stilling cannabis being illegal. Okay, same gender marriage. Okay, so there's a lot of just issues, right? There are things we'd like to eliminate. Okay, so I'm going to go here to kind of some statistics real quick as we kind of end. So this is looking more at Utah. Okay. We're looking at, okay, officer assaults. I don't think this is the one I wanted to look at. Maybe it's this next one. Hold on. Sorry, I should have had these right statistics here. Okay, there. Here's the one I was the ones I was looking for real quick. Okay. So serious crimes levels continue to decline in 1997. No, that's not, wasn't it? Okay, so I wanted to get some crime facts about Utah at the very end because these are kind of interesting. The average recovery rate of stolen property is 26%. So if you get something stolen, you're probably not going to see it back. 75% chance almost that you're not going to get back. Firearms were used in 35% of reported homicides. So firearms, you may think it's a big issue, but most of the time, if somebody's going to be killed, it's actually not going to involve a firearm, which is interesting. Okay. Somebody said they might manage to get their stolen bike back. Good. Because it's not fun to get things stolen, right? 22% of homicides were domestic. It means happened in the home. 67% were non-domestic, and 12% the relationship was unknown. Okay, I thought I had some more things about Utah, but guess not. Okay, this is kind of interesting. In the state of Utah, this is what I want to do. One homicide happens every 7.8 days. One rape every 9.6 hours. One robbery every 8 hours. One aggravated assault every 2.7 hours. One larceny every 7.4 minutes. One arson every 1.313 days. A motor vehicle stolen every 1.3 hours. One burglary every 38 minutes. Yeah. So a lot of those things. So you see, like, this does happen all the time. Right? So, and that's in Utah, right? According to their things. Okay. Yep, that's what I wanted to go over. Okay, so real quick, what you need to do, oh, it's going to make me log back in. Come on. Okay, remember what's due this week? We have the quiz, so make sure you do that. And then the reflection, and we'll see you next week. We have live class on Thursday, so the 8th. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate you guys all coming. If you need to contact me or have questions, you can stay after or contact me here. Thanks a lot. I'll stay after for a bit, but I'm going to stop the recording now.